Hello, everyone. In this video, I want to talk about another 3 elements that are emerging in the new business models. The first one is about access as an alternative to ownership or the possession of goods. New models are being created that no longer speak so much about buying and possessing a product, but rather, other alternatives. The second one has to do with high-impact businesses. Those models which above all define value on the positive impact they make on the planet or on people's lives. And lastly, those we call mixed realities. We can no longer talk about channels, but rather realities combining the digital with the physical.
Let's talk about the first element. Access as an alternative to ownership. As you know, when we define a business model, it's important to define how your client will obtain and enjoy that value that you're offering. How has it worked traditionally until now? Well, the majority of businesses proposed offering you a product or service and you paid with money or some other way, and from then on you owned that product or service in such a way that it was yours and you could enjoy it from that moment when you paid for it. On the other hand, as the author there on screen says in this book, Tien Tzuo, for him, the ownership models are in decline, and what are arising more and more are models based on access to that product, not so much ownership of the product or service. In addition, we're normally told that these models also come equipped with the use of subscription models. These subscription models are normally linked to servitization movements, which means that you don't just sell products but a series of services associated to that product that help to solve your problems as a client or consumer. Currently, they're usually growing much more than traditional businesses. What is that growth due to? I think it's up to 9 times more than the growth of traditional businesses. Well, basically, because they know the client much better than other models. Those subscription models make it possible to know the client much better than those businesses where above all your interaction is based on an isolated transaction. Subscription models, there are lots, and then there are businesses that are successful with this model and others that aren't. Next, we're going to show you a series of features which this subscription model must contain to be successful and, above all, to know the client better, to have a greater mass of clients. First is the cost. All subscription models need to be able to save you money if you subscribe. Why? Well, because usually these annual subscription models, or for several years, must be cheaper than when you use the product once or you simply subscribe for 1 month. The second element is convenience. When we talk about convenience, it's because these subscription models have to save time and effort for the client. You can use it when you want and simply, or obtain that value more simply. And lastly, we have incentives or prizes. What is this? The rewards that in the end we have to give the client. Rewards or prizes, so they either participate more in this subscriber community or to generate behaviors or amend some behaviors of the clients. Another characteristic which these successful subscription models have is doing good work with the subject of identity. What do we mean by this? Well, we have to work so that the community, the subscribers, share certain brand values and others similar to those to generate greater participation, to generate more information between them. In addition, we also talk about the community concept in the sense that usually these models are more successful when those consumers feel like part of something. That sense of belonging to something beyond what they are consuming. And lastly, we have the subject of experience. In the end, we can have all those characteristics or benefits that we've spoken about, but if then that value that we obtain with the subscription really isn't unique, enriching, startling, or even fun, then we won't be successful. Here on the screen you have 3 examples you know and you'll have heard about them. The first is Netflix. When we talk about access and ownership, what does it mean? Things aren't what they used to be, when, to see a film or a series, you had to go, I don't know if you remember, but we had video clubs, where you rented a film, or a shop where you bought that film. What we have now is a subscription to a platform where we have access to the possibility, for a monthly subscription, to access content. It's no longer ours, but rather during a period of time it's accessible on the platform so you can consume it or watch it. Then, with a similar model, there's Spotify. Now people even say, if you ask them what they're listening to or what they're going to listen to, they say Spotify. Now they hardly ever say the group or the music. And one that is not so digital but evidently based on a digital platform is BlaBlaCar. Many young people now, or many people, don't need to buy a car to own a car, because, as well as public transport, they have a very accessible means such as BlaBlaCar, where they can share journeys and access someone who takes them to one place or another by private car. Within the access concept, we also have a derivative, which is called pay-per-use. We have examples such as Apple Movie, where you have content within the subscription, accessible, and other content in pay-per-view. When you watch it, you pay. Clearer examples could be platforms like Uber, where you're a member of the platform, but you only pay when you sign up for a specific journey. There's another example, something really innovative, being introduced in this case, by Philips in lighting, which is we no longer pay to buy a bulb or buy an installation series, but rather what we do is pay Philips for the use we make of those bulbs or our ongoing consumption of that product. As we have said before, the key to the success and exponential growth of this type of model is based on knowing the client. It's data-driven business. Like business based on data, knowing the client. We are no longer talking, as we might have done in the past, about general data, but rather specific and personalized data like we talked about at other times. What do we mean by this? We're reaching a point where Netflix and Spotify know so much about you, they can suggest you an extremely precise service at the very moment you need it. And this is leading to the fact that in some countries, even the advertising you see on traditional channels via a smart TV is highly personalized advertising. The same thing that is going on the social networks. Joking apart, as you can see on the screen, Spotify ought to create a dating site because it knows what type of music people like. Now we'll move on to the second element we talked about earlier. Business models that have a positive impact. What we're already seeing is, I won't say all of them, but more and more new generation startups and even traditional companies with their new business units, what they're doing is imagining the technology and innovation to create a positive impact. Evidently, this connects with the times we are living in as humanity. This will above all, the youngest generations to create a positive impact or to reduce the negative effects that we've generated over previous decades. In fact, there are big brands and what they're doing is encouraging this activism that we people have, to do good or to generate a positive impact, facilitating products or services that achieve this. The reselling market is growing 25 times faster than the general market in the textile sector, for example. As you can see in the images, big companies are becoming circular. Above all, what they want to transmit is that we must consume much more responsibly and even cut down. On the other hand, give products a second use. So that we don't have to increase consumerism and generate a negative impact or at least generate much less impact. You have the examples of a large brand including within its values the matter of the environment since the beginning, like Patagonia, but also large brands like Uniqlo in Japan and throughout Asia, they're promoting and generating new lines to boost reuse and resale of those products. Well, and there are cases of startups who are facilitating this resale process, such as Vinted, which is growing a lot right now in Western countries. These business models, this reimagination of these sectors is motivated or related to consumerism anchored to ethics. In the end, they seek loyalty or connection with the client by means of some values and from these values which have to do with a positive impact on the planet. These business models speak about various subjects, but about the first, although it's a shock, the first thing is don't buy what you don't need. It seems a bit of a contradiction. A company that needs to sell products doesn't want you to buy. What it means is that in the end the buying more and more model, like it was a few decades ago or certain models proposed, will never be valid again, and what this type of business model tells you is not to buy what you don't need. They also talk about sustainable production. In the end, either production is sustainable from all perspectives or we can't be coherent with the values we transmit. Another important point is transparency. These businesses want to be totally permeable and totally open to the consumer, knowing that sustainable production and other brand and impact values they are transmitting. They talk about zero waste linked to not consuming for its own sake, but rather consuming what you need, but also, don't throw things away, but try to give them a second life or even sell them. And lastly, they talk about the concept of no logo. When we talk about this, it's that they try to get you not to buy a brand, but rather you buy what the brand transmits to you or how they help you in that activism we spoke about. Any brand can help you, so the important thing is not the brand, but how the product can help you to be more of an activist. Now I'd like to share the example of Hemper. It's a Spanish startup for sustainable and fair fashion, fair trade, that initially wanted to improve the life of local women in Nepal, where they produced and manufactured textiles with a series of materials, and what they wanted was to improve their lives, and through them, designing a series of products, quality production. They have connected with a lot of people in Spain and Europe, who connect with the brand values and also try to get you to create a positive impact, both for the community there and also from the point of view of sustainability. I wanted to highlight that case. Why? Because it's clearly a case where it's influencing and transforming the textile industry in some way, generally or globally. Right now they're working with Springfield, an urban clothing multinational for young people, where they've created the brand's first fair trade collection and where they want to grow. Therefore they have done so hand in hand with Hemper, and it's true that it's an interesting example where not only can these brands acquire one of these brands but also a relationship between equals. They've managed to create a new collection together and to contribute to those aims of greater sustainability and fairer trade with Nepalese communities. Lastly, in this element, I wanted to show two cases that you see here. One is Oroi, which applies virtual reality, in this case, a technology, to improve quality of life for elderly people. What they do is recreate or create again in them emotions that were no longer as well developed due to their situation or whatever. Another case on the screen is a startup, Kuvu, and what they do is combine a problem for youngsters and the elderly, where thanks to the concept of co-living or sharing in home, what they've done is, faced with the problem of the loneliness of the elderly, they've created a connecting platform between those elderly people and youngsters with problems to access a home due to high prices in urban centers, so they are creating a very nice value, very interesting, for two types of client. I would also like to highlight another example, a startup which started not long ago, called Humana. It's a fashion talent agency in the beauty market and sector, where what they've done is to introduce or change certain beauty patterns that exist in the industry, whether by attracting, supporting or developing the talent of diverse and different people. Established patterns are not always the best or those which connect with new realities or young people, so that they are working with those people who represent other realities in order to be able to also transform those canons or patterns of beauty. Lastly, I wanted to speak to you about an element which seems to me very important to bear in mind in your business models or in emerging business models, and that is mixed realities. Above all, it's very important when you're thinking about what channels, what value and what connection we make with the clients. We can no longer talk about channels, even as happened traditionally, but rather we can no longer differentiate the digital or the physical, rather the whole experience of enjoying the value of a product. Everything happens in hybrid realities where the digital and the physical combine indistinctly without the need to jump from one place to another. Within this element, I do like the concept of click and mortar. In English, they say bricks and mortar when referring to shops, physical shops, bricks and mortar, and I think it highlights rather well the idea of mixed realities, because it seems that with this digital transformation which is happening in all fields of life, it seems that we no longer want physical things, but that isn't so. Even the youngest people want those physical stores, those physical realities, but not as they used to be, but rather within the physical we also have to have digital experiences or those facilities or what digital offers us as well. We need it while we're in the shop. Starting a few years ago, physical shops are implementing systems like, or rather, location by means of our smartphones or our telephones, they're managing to capture that type of signal or that type of information to be able to offer us more personalized things. For example, if I walk around a shop, if they detect me, that I'm there with my phone and I've got an app for the shop, or another type, well, walking along an aisle I could even get alerts about offers or recommendations they might have. But in addition, with the more technological development of artificial intelligence or even augmented reality, we're already seeing much more highly developed apps. We saw in the shop CoverGirl in New York, like through a mirror, they could capture our emotions and suggest different makeup for us according to those emotions, and then even project via virtual reality or augmented reality how it'd suit us, live, at that moment in time. Another emerging element is that purchasing moments or shopping decisions are not like they were traditionally. Before, maybe we walked around a shop or in front of a display or a product and decided whether or not to buy. Now phenomena are happening like the ones on the screen, which are when influencers kind of become shops. Like when influencers talk about a topic, about a product, or they show something on their channel, they're now becoming virtual shops. Another interesting subject connected with, let's say, the subject of life commerce influencers is related to social commerce. We're now seeing apps where we can go from the concept of going to physical shops and we can do it online. There are apps that let us surf around virtual shops with a group of friends. We can give our opinion, make comments while we're shopping in the digital shops. Another point that, at least for me, is quite surprising, is the success, certainly in Asia at the moment, of virtual idols or influencers. With a very anime style, they're now becoming virtual people who are followed by thousands or millions of people, and many brands are using them to generate content, influence and purchases from many people. And a derivative of the same is happening with how the most well-attended concert of the last few decades did not take place physically, but took place on a platform like Fortnite with the concert by Marshmello. Evidently, within this trend or this emergence or things that emerge, we have the matter of gaming and how gaming is using these mixed realities. You have the case of Nintendo, like Pokemon Go in its day, but also with Mario Kart it's creating that you can be playing with a car physically, but really the course and all the physical point scoring is translated to the virtual world. Lastly, I'd like to remark on something that isn't new, but seems to me to be consolidating itself and is interesting because it's look and book or look and shop, which means that I see something and I can easily buy it at that moment even though I am not in a shop, in the environment of a virtual shop or digital shop or physical shop. Let's look at an example, that of EasyJet. They told you that you could be looking at different Instagram accounts, different photos of people and taking a screenshot. That image was identified by EasyJet and at that moment they could offer you a flight or an offer to reach that place. Also, there's also the case of Zara in Inditex or other brands where either passing the shop window or on the street itself, taking a photo, they recognized the type of garment and with that took you directly to their online store. Well, here we are, we've got the three new elements that we wanted to talk about, what is emerging in that definition of new business models, and we hope you found it interesting.